An unhappy puppeteer discovers a portal into the mind of a famous actor, which causes his marriage and sanity to unravel. Special guest Joanna Brief joins us to discuss DVD features that lie, what Charlie Sheen is probably like in real life, and how to pronounce the 7th and a half floor. Then we find out if Being John Malkovich stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says Gladiator with a glut, and Alan says as a father blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Test of Time. I am Being Alan Noah, and you over there, you're Being James Brief.
I am Being James Brief, and joining us once again, my sister Joanna Brief. Welcome back to the podcast.
Malkovich.
Ha ha ha, I see what you did there. Welcome back, Joanna.
Thanks. Good to be back.
The last time you were here, was it that crappy Halloween movie, Creepshow? Is that right?
Maybe.
No, it was that really fun but campy Halloween movie Creepshow.
No, I think my adjectives were correct. Well, welcome back.
Thank you.
And this was a movie that you wanted to come on to talk about, Joanna, for reasons that I do not remember. Why do you want to talk about this movie?
Picture it. San Francisco, 1999. Golden Girls? Okay. I was a young graduate student in San Francisco, and I went randomly to see this movie with a bunch of friends. I think it was opening night, and we got out onto the sidewalk afterwards, and there were cameras and lights, and we were accosted by PAs or somebody, like an assistant director, doing some kind of on-the-streets interview about, people's reactions to seeing the movie. So we were asked a few questions, and we answered. And I mentioned something about how I loved seeing puppeteering on this scale as an art form. So I totally forgot about it and then cut to whenever the DVD came out. And I don't remember who told me, but somebody informed me that I was on the DVD, interviewed with a couple of my friends. So immediately, of course, I got a hold of it. It was indeed the mini documentary about puppeteering. And right before they interviewed me, I think there was a caption on the screen saying, "We happened upon some local puppeteers who wanted to give their opinion." So when you hear me talking, it sounds like I could be a puppeteer. I'm saying it's nice to see this beautiful art form on such a large scale. So anyway, lies. I've never touched a puppet in my life.
But it's not your lie. You never claimed to be a puppeteer.
They were lies.
And they didn't quite claim you're a puppeteer. They heavily implied that you are by saying there's local puppeteers, and then they happen to show you. They don't call you Joanna Brief, local puppeteer.
I don't think there was a caption under my face saying puppeteer or puppeteer in training. But anyway, if you see that and you're wondering where that puppeteer is today, it's lies.
That's really funny. I assume you signed a release for it?
I don't think so.
Really? Then you would have grounds to sue. Yeah.
Because I'm going to go over the box office take.
If you did not sign a release and they used your license for profit, you would have grounds to go after them.
We have to pause. We have to call a lawyer. We have to Google some stuff.
Right.
We'll be right back.
In the meantime, why don't you tell people what this film's about if they have not seen this very peculiar film?
Yeah. It begins with Craig, a frustrated puppeteer, like you, Joanna, and his animal-loving wife, Lottie. Craig gets a job in a bizarre office located on the 7th and a half floor of a Manhattan building. 7th and a half or 7 and a half? 7th and a half, right?
7th and a half.
Yeah. You can't say 7 and a half.
Yeah.
That hurts my brain trying to process that. Okay, anyway. There, Craig meets Maxine, who he's immediately smitten with, though Maxine isn't interested in him. Craig also discovers a secret portal that leads directly into the mind of actor John Malkovich. For 15 minutes, he experiences life through Malkovich's eyes, before being ejected onto the side of the New Jersey Turnpike. Craig and Maxine exploit the portal for profit, charging people $200 to be John Malkovich. Meanwhile, Lottie also develops a crush on Maxine, but Maxine is only attracted to Lottie when Lottie is inside John Malkovich. It gets even more complicated when Craig uses his puppeteering skills to become John Malkovich for 8 months, during which time he marries Maxine. A heartbroken Lottie finds out that Craig's boss, Dr. Lester, has used the portal to live forever, jumping from body to body. In the end, Craig leaves John Malkovich's body, allowing Lester and his friends to become John Malkovich. Lottie and Maxine reconcile and have a daughter, and Craig is trapped in their daughter's subconscious forever. So, when this movie came out 25 years ago in 1999, it did pretty well, right, James?
Yeah, it wound up making $23 million domestically. It was in theaters for 6 months.
Wow. So, had you seen the movie since you saw it that first time in San Francisco?
Maybe once, at least a decade ago. It was nice to see again.
Yeah, I didn't really remember much about this movie. Most of this movie was kind of fresh to me because I hadn't seen it in so long. But when the movie starts, it begins with John Cusack as this quirky, creative guy, and he's got this wife who is just nagging him, and she doesn't get him. She doesn't understand his creativity, man. And then he falls for Maxine, and I was like, okay, so what? We're rooting for this guy to cheat on his wife because his wife is a nag and doesn't get him. And this is like 17 different shitty tropes all put into one. And I was watching it thinking, I thought this movie was clever and interesting, and it's not. It's just using recycled tropes. And then very quickly I came to see, oh, no, the movie is taking those cliches and those tropes and really, really, really fucking with them. But yeah, out of the gate, it did kind of hook me, I think, in the way that it was maybe trying to kind of fuck with the audience in a way.
Starting out like a normal, what is this, situational, is it a comedy, is it a drama about this starving artist or this struggling artist? And yeah, then it takes a turn. It doesn't keep you waiting too long. To me, the first hint that this was a different kind of movie was the 7th and a half floor concept.
Yeah.
The second I saw that, I thought Monty Python. That sounds like such a Monty Python type of concept.
Yeah.
I wasn't as amused by it in the beginning. I felt like it's quirky. Why? 'Cause it's quirky. Why is a floor only 5 feet tall? Because it's weird.
No, because there's low overhead.
Right. And you get this nice pun. And, I wasn't totally digging it at first, but I think a lesser film would have done more comedy with it. And I think this film does exactly the right amount of comedy with it. It does the bad dad joke, but everyone seems to be in on this joke. It's really not addressed too much, as if only Craig is noticing what the fuck is going on here, that we're on a floor that basically everyone has to crick their head.
Yeah. Years after this movie came out, I worked at a production company where I worked not exactly like you see in this movie, but kind of a half floor situation. Like, it was definitely a place meant for storage and not for human beings to work at desks. And they did at one point get in trouble with the fire department or something. Like, it was definitely not legal and up to code and should not have happened. But kind of to your point, James, the low overhead jokes work for me because they're corny dad jokes, but I think they make the joke 2, maybe 3 times, and that's it. It's got the ba-dum-ching kind of thing, and then they move on. Fine.
I want to talk about basically the title of the film and the subject of the film, that John Malkovich himself was interested in the script, but he wanted to change it. He said in an interview I saw with him that he doesn't find himself that interested. Like, why would you want Being John Malkovich? But first of all, he is, I think, a fascinating person, or what I think about this guy, John Malkovich, because I don't know who John Malkovich, the person, is. But I love that they picked John Malkovich and not Tom Cruise.
Oh, yeah.
And also, John Malkovich is enough of a name that I recognize him. I respect his gravitas because he's very well respected. He's a good actor. I love that Catherine Keener's Maxine's first reaction to hearing that Craig has been in the body of John Malkovich for 15 minutes. Her reaction, do you remember her reaction? Who the fuck is John Malkovich? And I know who he is. I know the two of you know who he is. I just think it was a particularly brilliant pick.
I agree completely. I thought it's the perfect choice because exactly everything you said. He's a respected actor, not too famous. You don't really know anything about him as a person. He's not like Sir Ian McKellen, but he does like Shakespeare and stuff. He's a serious actor. He's not a leading man. And the fact that he could make fun of himself was a key part. And I think the fact that his fame is very like middle of the road, and they obviously extrapolated jokes from that about mistaking his identity for an actor in a jewel thief movie,
right?
Stuff like that. You could easily walk by him on the street in 1999 and not really know who he is.
You touched on something very interesting right there. He is an actor, and he's not really famous. You know, he's not like a celebrity. And that's why the idea of this movie as being Tom Cruise just makes my spine shudder. Like, who the fuck wants to see that? You could do it, sure, but then it's a commentary on Hollywood celebrity, and he's walking down the street and the paparazzi are going, over here, over here. That maybe could be interesting, but I don't want to see that. And that's not what this movie is going for. It's more about identity and having it be kind of a blank slate of this actor that people kind of sort of know is way, way better than it being a mega celebrity like Tom Cruise. And it also occurred to me that now it's kind of more common to see actors playing a version of themselves, like the fictionalized version. Probably the most famous example is Larry David in Curb Your Enthusiasm, Neil Patrick Harris in the Harold and Kumar movies. It's become a thing of an actor playing a kind of sort of version of myself. I really, off the top of my head, can't think of an example before this movie, before 99 when John Malkovich did it.
The only example I could think of is maybe a little bit a movie we had reviewed that came out 5 years earlier than this. It's a John McTiernan film. It had one of the greatest actors of all time in it, Charles Dance.
Oh, you're thinking of Last Action Hero?
Right. Arnold Schwarzenegger plays a version of Arnold Schwarzenegger in it.
I think the other interesting thing about having John Malkovich in this movie is that he is not classically handsome like a Tom Cruise would be. And then this movie also stars John Cusack, who is a heartthrob from the 80s and still a good-looking man, and Cameron Diaz, who is drop-dead gorgeous. And the movie makes them look kind of frumpy. And then who's the sex object in the movie? It's John Malkovich. So it's kind of playing with attractiveness and the physicality of these people in a meta way.
I agree. There are a lot of jokes at the expense of John Malkovich, the actor, in this film.
Yeah.
And apparently they had taken all those mean jokes out once they actually got Malkovich to sign on to this. And John Malkovich, to his credit, said, no, put those jokes back in. They're hysterical, and the script is great. When Craig is puppeteering his body, he says something like, Malkovich, that overrated hack. Imagine writing that. And Mr. Malkovich, here's the line we'd like you to say now. It's just great that you'd be willing to do this.
The one that really made me laugh out loud is when Craig, as Malkovich, is talking with Maxine about what would they do for money, and Maxine says, oh, well, we'd have access to Malkovich's accounts, and he occasionally gets acting work too, which is such a petty thing to say, but again, meta, because she's saying that to John Malkovich to his face. But I want to unpack the love rectangle, quadrilateral, whatever the fuck it is in this movie, because it is really complicated. The relationship dynamics are bizarre and unlike anything else in any other movie that I can think of, where this movie starts with a love triangle and then it expands to a quadrilateral kind of, and as a movie watcher, a love triangle, got it, cool, seen a million of those, but this is just such a unique spin on it.
it was a genderless love, because Maxine is looking at a physical man, the body of John Malkovich, but you could tell that she is seeing Lottie in the eyes of John Malkovich. And we know that because she said later, she said, "I knew when you jumped in his body." So while she was both having sexual relations with a physical man, in her mind she's making love, and in many ways she is, because the mind of the man she's with is a woman. It's fascinating.
The first time that Lottie goes into Malkovich, she comes out and says that she thinks she's transsexual, which is not the proper word that we use nowadays. Now we would say transgender. But Craig is immediately dismissive of it. He kind of makes a joke where she says she wants to talk to the doctor, and he's like, "Well, that's your allergist." So that's kind of funny. But this idea that Lottie might be transgender is dropped, and they don't really go back to that. And at the end of the movie, it's sort of implied that she and Maxine are together as a lesbian couple. And as a cisgender man, I know very little about this, but I was reading about it because I was like, what do trans people think about this movie? And I read something that I thought was really fascinating, which basically said that there was some guy who basically said that people who think that they're transgender, they're wrong, they're really just gay. And it was like a shitty theory, and it's been debunked, and it's done lots of damage to the community. And this one thing I was reading was saying that's kind of maybe what this movie is saying, which isn't the best, but you could maybe argue that at the end of the movie, Lottie is in fact a transgender man, and we don't know. It's never stated, so who knows? She's kind of presenting as feminine, but I kind of like the way you said it, James. It's a genderless love. You could also make the argument that Craig in this movie has some transgender leanings. When he's playing with the puppet early in the movie and he's talking to the puppet Maxine, he's talking to himself, but as Maxine, he's saying, "Don't you want to be in my skin? Don't you want to think what I think? Don't you want to feel what I feel?" And Craig says, "Yes, more than anything." So he kind of has these gender dysmorphic feelings too, and in a way he's jealous of Lottie because Lottie gets to experience them. She is a woman who wants to know what it's like to be a man, and she does. He's a man who wants to know what it's like to be a woman, and he can't. So that maybe leads into some of his frustrations. I'm not justifying it at all, but maybe leads to some of his horrifically shitty behavior where he pulls a fucking gun on his wife and locks her in a cage. When I first started the movie and I thought it was, a love story about him, I was like, oh no, this is no longer what this movie is. And it's almost kind of like a villain origin story for him, where he just really descends into madness, not necessarily because of the gender stuff, but also in part because he's a jealous fucking asshole.
I think it's mostly jealousy.
Oh, sure.
I think the fact that Maxine, who is a very manipulative person, she seems to manipulate everyone in this movie, and it's all about herself. She just wants what's good for her. She definitely manipulates Craig. She manipulates John Malkovich. I think she's manipulating Lottie as well. She has no interest in going through this door. She has no interest in really anything about this. Craig, after his first trip, is talking all about the metaphysical ramifications of this, and she's like, I don't give a shit about any of that stuff.
Yeah, she just wants to make money.
She is ice cold. Played brilliantly by Catherine Keener. I love her in this film. I don't get the motivation of this character, except that she just is completely selfish.
Yes, but I also think that she is just complicated. And I think you could maybe say that that's wallpapering over some serious character flaws, which would be a valid point. When the movie starts, yeah, I kind of hated her. I'm like, who is this manipulative, evil woman who's just toying with these people? But in the end, she does kind of come around. Ultimately, she makes the right choice to be with Lottie. In a way, if this was a more standard rom-com, she would be the hero. She would be the leading lady who finds the love of her life. Craig goes from maybe the affable hero to the piece of shit. And Lottie goes from the nagging wife to, I guess, the jealous, jilted ex-lover to the loving companion. I don't know. Maybe there's not really more to map to other kinds of movies because it just doesn't work. But they all go on really interesting journeys that you wouldn't expect when the movie first starts.
I couldn't really wrap my head around why they liked Maxine so much. And conversely, I don't understand why Maxine was in love with Lottie.
I think Craig, in a way, likes Maxine kind of because she's so mean to him and because she's putting him down. There's something about that he finds attractive. And I think even though she's not attracted to him, she kind of gets off on putting him down. With Lottie, when she first meets her in the 7th and a half floor, isn't that like one of the first things she says? Is like, oh, you're the partner? Wow, you're pretty. So I think there is just some physical attraction there. And I think Maxine is attracted to Lottie only when she's in Malkovich, because there's something about that combination of the feminine energy with the masculine physicality. There's something about that combination that I don't even think she really understands, but she's just drawn to for whatever reason.
One other thing I want to talk about, a scene I did not remember at all in this film, is the Charlie Sheen cameo scene. He's going kind of crazy. He feels like someone's taking over his body. And who does he go to? He goes to Charlie Sheen. And apparently, this role was first written. Do you know who it was written for first?
No, I don't.
It was scripted to be Kevin Bacon.
Oh.
And he said no. And Malkovich knew Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen apparently said yes right away. And this is a pre-Two and a Half Men Charlie Sheen, a.k.a. pre-Tiger Blood. He went absolutely insane. What was his tour called? A heat-seeking missile tour of truth, I think.
Oh, geez.
It was something. That was a time, an interesting 6 months.
When he kept saying winning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the fact that Charlie Sheen, he's not weirded out that much by this story. I love it because, again, I don't really know who Charlie Sheen is. I only know that Charlie Sheen from the tabloids. I don't know what kind of father he is. I don't know what kind of person he is in real life. But I can kind of believe that he would kind of be like, cool, man. Well, let's hear more about this story. And I love his cameo here. I think Kevin Bacon's a great actor, but I feel like Kevin Bacon, I would want him to react differently than Charlie Sheen did.
Kevin Bacon plays a version of himself, a fictionalized version of himself, in the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Spectacular, streaming on Disney+, which is very good.
Is it because they make a reference to Footloose in the second film as like being one of the greatest films ever or something?
No, it's because they do that in the first movie.
Oh, okay.
But yes, the thing that I found kind of weird about it is I just don't picture John Malkovich and Charlie Sheen as friends. Not now, not in 1999. That just seems weird. I guess maybe it would make more sense in 99. I guess that's around the time Charlie Sheen was on Spin City, maybe?
Well, I think that's the joke. John Malkovich, he was never a leading man, but he did have the reputation of a quote-unquote serious Shakespearean King Lear type actor. And Charlie Sheen was always tacky, going after, really kind of cheesy roles. I think that was kind of part of the joke, that this really classy character, his confidant and his best friend is Charlie fucking Sheen.
Charlie Sheen's from Platoon and Wall Street, and he definitely also did sillier films, but he's a great actor. But he mostly I don't think he's known for Sir Laurence Olivier kind of things.
Another interesting reason why, in my opinion, they chose John Malkovich is that if you think about the film in terms of human desire, and desire for other humans, and then your own identity and the escaping of your own identity. The fact that John Malkovich is kind of like not a Tom Cruise. He's kind of like nothing. And they go into his brain to watch him order bath mats over the phone.
Right.
The most banal, relatable thing in the entire world. And there's lines out the door for it. I think the only person in the film who does not show any interest in having the experience is Maxine.
Yeah.
Probably because she's the only one really confident in herself, and she does not have the desire to to adopt another identity.
Right. All the people that are waiting in line, they kind of seem like sad people. They want to experience someone else's life for 15 minutes. There's this kind of average schlub that he answers an ad, I can be someone else for 15 minutes. Can I be anyone? And it's funny because they're like, no, it's only specifically actor John Malkovich. Sold, I'll take it. It's like, they don't really care.
Well, doesn't he say that was his second choice?
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like really, really funny. Who was your first choice? And also, who was your third? You know, like I really want to see that guy's list.
Yeah, I agree. But Joanna, I would say that there's another reason that they had to pick John Malkovich. Malkovich.
It's a funny name.
It's a funny sounding name. It just sounds like, oh, you come back here, you little Malkovich.
What's funny is while the three of us were texting about doing this episode and the logistics and everything, you two were texting back and forth, Malkovich, and I hadn't watched the movie yet, and I didn't remember that scene, and I was like, this is going to make sense when I watch the movie, I'm sure, but I didn't really get the reference.
Yeah, this refers to one of the most famous scenes in the film where John Malkovich is figuring out something's really weird, and then he follows Maxine back to the office and finds out they're going into a portal of me. It's something brilliant because it's a question I never had, and I'm instantly wondering what the answer is. What the fuck is going to happen if John Malkovich goes into John Malkovich? I wasn't thinking this at all,
right.
But I instantly want to know. And the answer was nothing like what I expected, and it completely satisfied me. It was such a great, weird scene, and not too weird just for being weird. I just loved it.
Yeah, it's a very, very funny scene. Also, the special effects of having that many Malkoviches in one scene work. I was kind of expecting it to be hokey and kind of crappy, and you can kind of see the seams and be like, okay, you can kind of tell that digital face doesn't look quite right. Maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention, but I thought it looked pretty damn good.
I think it was great. I watched that scene twice, or one part of the scene twice, because I really want to see what they did. And it's obvious they did some digital manipulation. Most obvious, the shot where he has the body of this voluptuous woman rubbing her breasts. I think they got 40 men with a hair pattern like John Malkovich, and you can really tell they're very quick cuts. I think you're looking at the back of a lot of different men, and they very strategically put the real John Malkovich in a different section, and it looks like all 6 of these guys are actually John Malkovich. So I just think it was brilliantly done with $13 million for a budget. You don't have much with this scene, and this scene has to work.
I don't know specifically which music videos Spike Jonze directed. I know this was his first directorial feature, but I could imagine that directing music videos, he would have to stretch a budget to make some special effects work. So maybe that helped him here.
He did Weapon of Choice, right? I'm pretty sure he did that.
I think so. With Christopher Walken, Fatboy Slim.
Yeah, he's done a lot of them. The first one I thought of was he did Sabotage. He did a lot of Beastie Boy ones, but the one I knew he did, which was a great early special effect, was Weezer's Buddy Holly.
Oh yeah,
he did that one. Yeah, he's done a lot of special effect videos.
Okay, well there you go. I wanted to talk about the end of the movie, because there are a lot of questions that come up, and I think some of them you're just not supposed to think about. The one that I was thinking about was when Maxine confesses that she knows it's Lottie's baby, where, she's saying that Lottie was in Malkovich when she got pregnant. How could she possibly know that, right? Because isn't it that she's sleeping with Lottie as Malkovich and then with Craig as Malkovich within a day or two? Like, can she really know that definitively? There's no way to DNA test that, right? Because the baby's going to be half Malkovich. So maybe you're just supposed to think it's intuition and leave it at that.
That's what I got.
When Craig has sex with Maxine, when he's inside Malkovich, and she's thinking that it is Lottie in Malkovich, is that rape? I mean, I don't really know how you would define it, but it definitely at least feels rapey.
It's rape on two levels. I mean, two people are being raped. John Malkovich's physical body, and Maxine thinks she's having sex with Lottie inhabiting the body of John Malkovich.
They do rape his mind. There's hundreds of people that go, I'm talking about all the people that are waiting in line, Dr. Lester's whole group. They're not just going to rape him. They're going to make him like their gimp for the rest of his life. He's going to be a sex slave of theirs. He's going to make their money. He doesn't get to keep any of it for himself. They control every aspect of his life. So I think they're all horrible. Craig has taken it one level more.
He wanted Maxine by any means necessary. And, I mean, he physically imprisoned his own wife and chimp just to get a chance to, like, sort of have sex with her.
There randomly is a chimp in this film who lives with them, and there is a very weird scene when Lottie is tied up. We get this great flashback in the point of view of the monkey in the exact same camera angle that we get the point of view puppeteering of John Malkovich. We see the monkey's flashback, and even the monkey, the chimp's parents talking to him in subtitles, and he learns how to like untie the rope.
The funniest thing about the monkey scene is that in flashback, the chimp's parents refer to the chimp as Elijah, which is what Lottie has been calling him. So somehow she knew his name was Elijah. She got it right. Also, prior to that, she's talking about Elijah's problems and he has this childhood trauma, and Craig is rolling his eyes at his dumb wife with his dumb theories about this dumb chimp. But no, she was right. This chimp does have childhood trauma. I think part of the thing with Lottie and the animals is that she wants children. That is part of the identity that she wants for herself. And at the end of the movie, that is fulfilled because then she and Maxine get to raise this child together. So she does get to be a parent at the end of a human, not just a chimp. And lots of dogs. I think there's a beagle in there, right?
Maybe. I think that was also to impress upon everyone the fact that this is a not happy, not colorful, beautiful home life. Their apartment's disgusting, and they're talking about the chimp in diapers, and he wants to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
And I guess she does too.
Nothing against people who have animals, but you can't have that many animals in a New York City apartment. Come on.
Absolutely not.
That is not okay.
Can I ask you guys one question about one character in this film? There's this one character who she can't understand anything that anyone's saying. I think the funny thing is that Dr. Lester believes her so much that she's not deaf. He must have a speech impediment because she can't understand him. It's because she can't hear him, maybe. I'm just wondering, is she really deaf or is she faking it?
I thought she was really deaf or crazy.
I think she's hard of hearing. And the joke is that Dr. Lester is so infatuated with her that he's willing to take on this flaw and say that it is his flaw because it couldn't possibly be anything wrong with her, which also kind of mirrors Craig and, you know, the way he gets infatuated with Maxine, where he just thinks she's wonderful and perfect when very clearly she is not. And, you know, not being able to see those flaws that are right fucking in front of you when you are infatuated with someone.
Interesting. Is Dr. Lester and all of those, say, 30 older people that wind up going into John Malkovich, do each of them have 30 people in them and they've been doing this for thousands of years? Because I presume now John Malkovich will have 30 people in him. And then when he eventually jumps into the little girl in 40 years or so, when her mind is ripe, there will be 31 people controlling this girl, right? 30 people plus John Malkovich, plus Charlie Sheen and everyone else that's going to be invited into this girl, right? I was just wondering, because it's assumed that they've been doing this for a long time. John Malkovich is not the first person they're jumping into.
Well, first off, it's not a +1 because now Dr. Lester is Malkovich.
But I thought all 30 of them are in Malkovich.
Well, yeah, but the people that he brings along, he says, I've figured out how to do this so I won't be lonely. So I don't think that he's been doing it for a long time with lots of others. And presumably if there were all of those other people with him when he was Lester, then they would already be inside of him as Lester. So I think they're new to the process.
Right.
And they don't really explain how that's going to work, because when you see that flash forward at the end, Malkovich is talking to Sheen, or as they call each other, Machine and Malcatraz, which is hilarious. But Malkovich knows Sheen. Like, they have that shared history. So it's not just Dr. Lester's life in there. So I don't really fully know how it works, but I don't think those 30 people had a whole bunch of other people in them and it's compounded. I do think the tragic thing is that this poor, adorable little girl who you see swimming in the pool is ultimately going to be taken over by someone else. You feel worse about that than you do about Malkovich, who is not himself for 8 full months and then gets to finally return to himself for seconds before everyone else leaps into him. And you should feel bad for him, but it's just kind of played as a joke and, whatever.
What I love about the finality of the characters is that some of them are happy, most of them are happy, but none of them have what they think they have or what they wanted. It seems almost like a happy ending, like this lesbian couple finds each other, they love each other, they have this beautiful daughter, and the older people are inside Malkovich, and he has the secretary as his wife then. I don't think there could be a darker ending when you realize that John Cusack is trapped in the child, forever looking through her eyes, longing at the woman he can't have from afar.
It's pretty fucked up. And I was reading a thing that apparently there's this fan theory that the movie Get Out is like a sequel, because Catherine Keener's in it, and it also has that theme of being trapped in someone's subconscious, and you're kind of there, but you're banging against the wall and you can't affect anything. Jordan Peele was like, no, that was not at all my intention, but okay, cool, like, good theory, whatever. I think you're not supposed to feel bad for Craig because he's a douchebag, but I don't know, I felt bad for that little girl because there's this thing inside of her that I think you're supposed to just think, she's never even going to notice that he's there. And, this isn't the kind of movie where there's going to be a sequel about him busting through her consciousness or anything like that. But yeah, it's fucked up. This poor sweet little girl just wants to go swimming with her moms, and
so
there's this fucking psycho in her head.
It's so dark. Do you think the child is aware?
No, I don't think she's aware, because Dr. Lester said earlier that if they go in past the 44th birthday at midnight, you're trapped forever. So he declared the rules of what this is. So I think he is trapped. And I think you can feel bad for Craig. I think you can still think he's a scumbag. Or even, does he deserve an eternity trapped? That is a very unique punishment.
Is it for eternity, or is it only until the girl's 44th birthday, at which point he'll be shot out on the New Jersey Turnpike?
Interesting. Who knows? And interesting, will he be shot out as a 40-ish year old Craig? Because then, great way to preserve your life in some ways. You got to be a puppet. You have to be puppeted for about 40 years, trapped in someone's life. But then, hey, you'll pop out in 2085 if you want to sit in this guy's body for 60 years.
The whole thing about the 44th birthday, I was kind of thinking, holy shit, John Malkovich is 44 in this movie? And he wasn't, but I think he was like 45 or 46 or something. He doesn't look great for 44. I mean,
Made me feel real old.
He really does look older than 44.
John Malkovich, when he's in Con Air as Cyrus the Virus, he's kind of jacked in that film. And that's only a couple years before this. I think he looks noticeably different.
Right. Oh, well, Joanna, as our very special guest, I am going to ask you first, do you think that Being John Malkovich stands the test of time?
Well, speaking as a puppeteer, I have to say, just kidding. So many of the major themes I feel would not translate well today, besides the fact that they said the R word slur 45 fucking times in this movie.
Right.
I feel that it does stand the test of time because it's so fucking brilliant. I think if it was made today, there's some things that would be changed. Like, first of all, I would be curious to hear what a trans person's perspective is on it, and if it's offensive, considering the fact that back in 1999, when transgenderism was not in the culture like it is today, it seemed to be coupled with sexuality. And gender identity is completely different than sexuality. And they seem to be blurred lines with that with Lottie, because she was talking about the power of having a penis and loving to be a man. And then at the end, she was a woman. So did she become not trans? Was she a lesbian? And I feel like that would have to be rethought if it was done today.
Yeah.
I think they would have had to do something different with locking her up in a cage and raping her. Unless that's part of the darkness of the film. I mean, I think it's one of the darkest films I've seen, if you think about it. I do think it stands the test of time because it's just too damn good.
All right. James, what do you think?
I love that this film gives John Malkovich the perfect title for his inevitable autobiography. If he names it anything else, that would almost be a shame. It's very intellectual, very complex, and I think one of the definitions of a good film is that days after watching the film, I'm just thinking about it. So it's intriguing there. It's gotten better. I liked it the first time. I thought it was in kind of one of these indie films that was weird, but they're very, very clever. And I saw it now. I liked it a lot, even more than I did. So yes, this film stands the test of time. A great film. Well, what do you think, Al? Does it stand the test of time? I think I know the answer. I think the listeners know the answer. Give them what they want to hear, Al.
I agree that the movie stands the test of time.
Yes.
I think it is a very, very good movie. It's really thought-provoking. It breaks the conventions of what you think it's going to be. It shatters them. I really, really enjoyed it. And to your point, Joanna, about what transgender people think about it, I can't speak for all transgender people, especially as a cisgender dude, but I did read one thing written by a transgender person who said that when Craig says to Lottie, it's just a phase, when she says that she is considering sexual reassignment surgery, that is apparently what trans people hear a lot when they say that they want to have that surgery. That's what people tell them. It's just a phase. And what Lottie responds back is, don't stand in the way of my actualization as a man. And what I read about that was, damn, that is really ahead of its time. That line of dialogue was in a 1999 movie when people weren't really talking about that. This trans author was saying, I wish I had had that kind of language so many years ago, because you just didn't hear stuff like that. And that is the perfect response to someone saying, it's just a phase, don't stand in the way of my actualization. So in a way, this movie was approaching some of these gender and transgender issues in a way that's really ahead of its time. Also, Charlie Kaufman does play with gender in a lot of his works. I don't really remember Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind and Adaptation that well. I know I saw them and I enjoyed those movies. Did either of you watch I'm Thinking of Ending Things?
No.
I read the book.
Okay, yeah.
I did not see it. I have a friend who is a huge Kaufman fan, read a lot of his books, and apparently two of the main themes that he recycles from different perspectives and different mediums is playing with gender, and also the concept of a man having intense infatuation for a woman that kind of is sadistic towards him, and a little bit of a embarrassment kink. Is that what it's called? Humiliation fetish. That's what it is.
Okay.
Apparently that's a thing for him.
Yeah, like with Maxine and Craig in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the book, you know, but I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the movie, I didn't read the book, that plays with gender a lot. I didn't really love that movie, but whatever. It's an interesting thing to explore, and I like the way that this movie approaches the gender themes, the theme of identity and wanting to be someone else. And really, I think you can make the argument that the main theme of the movie is just be yourself, which is the biggest fucking cliche ever. But Jesus Christ, does this movie talk about that in a really, really fucking interesting and unconventional way. I really enjoyed it. Watching this movie kind of made me want to revisit Adaptation and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, just because I want to see more of this guy's voice in other things. And what doesn't stand the test of time about this movie? When they call the newspaper to place an ad. Okay, you wouldn't do that 25 years later, but that's a really fucking small quibble. This is a brilliant movie. I loved watching it, and it definitely stands the test of time. I guess the DVD feature of you, where they call you a puppeteer, that doesn't stand the test of time. Or I guess it was never true, so that's a different thing.
The myth lives on. Somewhere out there, young puppeteers seeing me in the DVD, and they're inspired by me.
Well, I think you should be inspired to take up puppeteering. I think you should prove that special feature correct. The next time you're on the podcast, I expect you to bring marionettes. I want a full puppet show.
Only if you find me a portal.
I will look into it. I'll go back to that old office I worked at on the half floor.
Right now we're on the 6th floor. It can't be that far.
Right? Well, thank you for joining us again, Joanna. This is awesome.
Thank you for having me again for what I think is my 8th time.
I've lost count, but you are always welcome here. And not just because you are a blood relation of one of the hosts.
It doesn't hurt.
I guess not. I guess it doesn't hurt. Well, that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we're going to be talking about a movie that's going to be really, really hard for you to say, James. We're talking about Gladiator.
Gladiator.
No, Gladiator.
We'll get to this next week.
Yeah, we will. The 2000 movie starring Russell Crowe is getting a sequel now, Gladiator 2. So we're going to revisit the first movie. Really looking forward to that conversation. In the meantime, we want to hear your thoughts on John Malkovich, on Being John Malkovich, on pretending to be John Malkovich.
Pretending to be a puppeteer.
Sure, exactly. That too. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. You can email us at testoftimepodcast@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time, everyone.
Bye.
Malkovich.